On behalf of historic Cabarrus and Cabarrus County, welcome to another historical moment in the story of old Cabarrus and her people. For those of us who grew up in the shadow of the great smokestacks bearing the Cannon name, it's hard to imagine Kannapolis without thousands of skilled workers weaving quality textile products, packaging and shipping them around the world to carry the Cannon name to every corner of the earth. Today, those great manufacturing plants are quiet. Parking lots are empty. The distinctive neon sign, which represented Kannapolis to the world, which could be seen by passengers on the nearby railroad or on Main Street here, has been gone for many years. The town lake's future itself is uncertain at this time. Matters have changed dramatically for the town. We're beginning today a series of historical segments which will trace the history of Kannapolis and her textile empire. In a special sense, these segments are going to be the story of a special family and a special man. Join us for the first segment, which we call A Time to Build, the story of Jim Cannon's Kannapolis. James William Cannon celebrated his 13th birthday on April 25th, 1865, at the family farm near Derita in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. The following day, Confederate General Joe Johnston surrendered his exhausted army to the forces of Union General William T. Sherman at a farmhouse near Durham, North Carolina, and the war between the northern and southern states was over in North Carolina. Returning veterans came home to a South of devastation and despair. Southern economies had been wrecked by the war. Cotton production, which had been 5 million bales in 1860, had dropped to 2 million bales by 1866 and did not regain former levels for almost 20 years. The returning veterans had seen firsthand the power of northern manufacturing plants, and some of them resolved to harness the power of industrialization as the way to rebuild the Southern economy. J.W. Cannon was born in Charlotte in 1852, the child of hard-working farm parents who traced their lineage back to the hill country of Scotland and the Ulster region of Northern Ireland. He received a basic sound education in the old session house at Sugar Creek Presbyterian Church, then began working as a clerk in a Charlotte store. When he was 16 years of age, he came to Concord to work in a general store in which his older brother David had an interest, Pfeiffer and Cannon. For Jim Cannon, it was a homecoming of sorts. His family roots went down very deeply into the soil of the Poplar Tent section of Cabarrus County. His new hometown was not particularly imposing at that time, however. It had frame buildings, muddy streets, no sidewalks, and no street lamps. It did have one valuable asset, however. The North Carolina Railroad ran just to the west and provided an easy means for local farmers and merchants to ship their goods from the depot to other markets. The village had a small cotton mill located at the end of its main street. Built in 1839 by a group of local investors, merchants, and farmers, whose number included Ibzan Cannon, Jim Cannon's uncle. The small mill was steam-powered and was situated just north of the then city limits of Concord on the present site of Lock Mill Plaza. By 1842, the mill advertised that it was in full operation and could offer any quantity of quality yarn, as well as nails at the bargain price of 7 cents per pound. By 1850, the mill employed 15 male and 55 female operatives and produced both sheeting and yarn. Unfortunately, the mill was never more than marginally profitable, however, and its superintendent, John McDonald, bought it in 1856. Superintendent McDonald was able to keep the mill operating during the war years. Unfortunately, a combination of financial reverses caused by bad machinery, by a soft cotton market, and the financial panic of 1873 caused it to close. In 1877, the mortgage on the mill was foreclosed, and the mill property was purchased by Captain John Milton Odell, who reopened its doors, added on to the mill property, and began producing quality textiles, creating the foundation for the textile empire, which would serve to revitalize the entire Cabarrus County economy. Captain Odell's success encouraged his talented young protege, J.W. Cannon. Jim Cannon had a natural knack and gift for merchandising. By age 19, he had purchased a partnership interest in the store in which he had clerked and became its managing partner. At age 21, he formed his own business, Cannon and Wadsworth. His calling card depicts a handsome, confident young bachelor in his early 20s. With his success assured, he married the lovely Mariella Balst, the daughter of Martin Luther Balst of Cabarrus County. The couple purchased a lot on the east side of North Union Street, where he erected a red brick Victorian home. In 1900, they purchased a lot on the west side of North Union Street and erected a lovely Queen Anne facade style home, which was later the first home of Cabarrus Academy. 10 children were born to the couple in Concord. They named the youngest of their 6 sons Charles Albert Cannon. A popular merchant, Jim Cannon became a trusted and skilled cotton buyer. He watched the success of the Odell mills and began to fashion a vision of a cotton business in which cotton would be taken all the way from the field to the sales room. A business which would not only furnish jobs for Southern workers, but would furnish a good return for Southern businessmen and investors. Many others had shared in that dream, but very few had the grit and determination to risk an established career on carrying it out. J.W. Cannon's first plant was built on Franklin Street in Concord near the railroad, although very little remains today to mark that location. That plant was primarily a yarn mill, although looms were quickly installed and the plant began weaving a coarse cotton cloth which was marketed as Cannon cloth and soon became famous nationally among housewives. Although J.W. Cannon was the driving force behind that first mill, Captain J.M. Odell was actually the president of Cannon Mills initially, followed by David Franklin Cannon, J.W. Cannon's older brother. In 1889, President Odell reported to the shareholders meeting of Cannon Manufacturing Company that in the prior 6 months, the company had produced more than 1 million yards of sheeting, 10,000 pounds of yarn, and 1,300 dozen towels. Those first flat weave crash towels were selling for the price of 75 cents per dozen. Mr. Joseph D. Bacon, who was the overseer of carding in that first Cannon plant, recalled later that J.W. Cannon would come to the plant and don overalls so that he could work beside his employees until he learned every aspect of the mechanical part of the textile business. A second Cannon plant was built in 1892 on Corbin Avenue near the railroad and near the freight depot. Although the plant is still standing, freight depots have long since been demolished. By that year, textiles had so transformed Concord that a fancy dress leap year ball was held at the new elegant St. Cloud Hotel, which had been built by brothers David and Jim Cannon on the site of today's Hotel Concord. Early 1905, Jim Cannon decided to acquire enough land on which to build giant new plants to manufacture his towels. He wanted enough acreage surrounding those plants on which to build a model mill town, which he saw as a community complete with recreational, social, medical, and business facilities for the residents. He acquired the services of John K. Patterson, who was a retired Register of Deeds in Cabarrus County and a well-known real estate and insurance agent in Concord, and asked Mr. Patterson to acquire options on at least 600 acres of land near the community of Glass, a few miles north of Concord. Mr. Patterson was unable to secure enough land options in the vicinity of Glass, so he traveled north along the Salisbury Road until he came to the present location of modern-day Kannapolis. There he was able to secure options on almost 1,200 acres of land in northern Cabarrus and southern Rowan counties. Mr. Cannon visited the land with his northern financial backers and decided to build his new plants there in northern Cabarrus County. He began to exercise his options, and by the winter of 1906, he had exercised options on more than 1,000 acres of land, which he acquired for an average price of $26 per acre. By the fall of 1906, surveyors had laid off the first great plants and also laid off the building lots for the first 75 frame homes which were being built to house the workmen who were going to construct those mills. Old Trim, the famous Rowan County mule, hauled the first load of green lumber into Kannapolis in November 1906, and construction began in earnest. The Patterson Manufacturing Company built its first mill to the north of Town Lake, while the Cannon Manufacturing Company built its first mills to the west and behind the lake. J.W. Cannon not only supervised the day-to-day operation of his new mills, he kept his promises to the workers. In addition to hundreds of solidly built homes for them, he erected a world-class YMCA complete with a theater. He donated land for churches, built stores, and donated lands for local schools. He also extended an invitation to the Cabarrus County Commissioners, which they accepted, to build and improve a better road from Concord to the new plant at Kannapolis. In later years, early residents like Hubert Overcash and Oscar Towell recall that there was little to do in town after 9 o'clock at night when all the stores closed. About the only amusements were to go to the YMCA theater and watch a movie, or to go down to the depot and watch old number 12 arrive and depart each evening. The great events of Kannapolis year, however, were the 4th of July celebrations. Sponsored by the mill company, those patriotic celebrations included parades, baseball games, food and amusements for the entire family. The celebrations ended with a great 4th of July fireworks celebration set off here in the middle of Town Lake. That custom continued for many years until an unfortunate accident caused all the fireworks to be exploded at one time and ended the custom. Today, a parking lot occupies the site of that first YMCA. For most of the year, the Y was the center of social and civic life in the new community of Kannapolis. During 1918, in the worldwide influenza epidemic, the Y even doubled as a hospital for residents of the surrounding community. Also in 1918, the Y started its first library, which became very popular throughout the entire community and surrounding areas. By 1919, membership of the Y had increased such that it was able to claim the largest membership under one roof in the southeastern United States. In 1921, the first high school graduation in Kannapolis took place at the Kannapolis YMCA. Meanwhile, mill operations continued to prosper under J.W. Cannon's leadership. In 1913, Giant Plant 4 was built on South Main Street in Kannapolis. And in 1915, the headquarters of Cannon Manufacturing Company was moved from Concord to Kannapolis and housed in the first brick office building built by the company. Mr. Cannon never forgot the part that his employees played in his success. When it was necessary, due to hard economic times, to cut salaries, he made sure to cut his own first. In 1917, he arranged for each of his employees to be insured under a life insurance policy issued by Aetna Life Insurance Company. Entry of the United States into World War I brought some significant changes to Kannapolis. Led by J.W. Cannon, the popular Cannon Mills Band traveled by train to Charlotte to enlist as a group. Cannon Mills received some important government contracts and supplied many of the textile needs of American troops during World War I. As a result, most of the Cannon production of then popular Huck towels was used to fill the military contracts, and civilians were forced to buy the more available terry cloth towels. They found them to be fluffy and absorbent, with the result that after the war, Huck towels never regained their former popularity, while terry cloth towels became an important Cannon Mills manufacture. Also, with the war going on, many more women entered the manufacturing force, and Cannon built a great new dormitory called Mariella Hall in which to house some of the women workers in his plants during World War I. 1921 was a watershed year for Cannon Manufacturing Company. J.W. Cannon was elected to the newly created post of chairman of the board of directors, while his youngest son, Charles A. Cannon, was elected as president and treasurer of Cannon Manufacturing Company. Cannon did not escape all of the labor unrest which followed World War I. A general strike was called in the Charlotte vicinity in 1921, with the result that local textile plants were closed for about 2 months. However, Kannapolis fortunately escaped most of the violence that accompanied the strike in other towns and cities in North Carolina. 1921, unfortunately, brought a change in the health of J.W. Cannon. By the fall of that year, his health had worsened. He became quite ill in winter of 1921. On December the 21st, local newspapers reported that Mr. Cannon clung to life until 6 o'clock, when the mill whistles blew and it was time to go home. The editor of the local paper attempted to summarize the accomplishments of a rich and fruitful life in one paragraph. Beginning at a time when the textile industry in the South was thought hazardous by most people, Mr. Cannon, through sheer ability and energy, amassed a great fortune, planned and built the largest towel factory in the world, mapped out and built an entire city of 6,000 population, secured control of 600,000 spindles and 10,000 looms, and took the active management in other business enterprises. Though centering his activities mainly in the textile field, he proved a great banker, a master of marketing goods, and a wonderful judge of men. In 1992, as part of the county's bicentennial effort, the Division of Archives and History erected an historical marker honoring J.W. Cannon in Cabarrus County and near Kannapolis. It reads simply as follows: James W. Cannon, 1852-1921, textile pioneer, founder of Cannon Mills, 1887, and Kannapolis, 1906, leading manufacturer of towels. Grave 2 miles to the south. Fortunately for the future of J.W. Cannon's vision and that of the citizens of his model mill town, his youngest son, Charles A. Cannon, carried on his dream and built on the foundations his father had laid a great city and a great industrial complex. We hope you'll join us for another segment as we study the history of C.A. Cannon in Kannapolis during the half century from 1921 through 1971, as we continue to study the history of this special place and this special people. We hope to see you again real soon.